I was in my kitchen making chocolate chip cookies when my phone rang. It was Lincoln Elementary School, and what they told me made my blood run cold. Mrs. Williams, there was an incident today. Tommy got into a fight defending you, and he's very upset. He keeps saying his grandma is worth more than his dad. When I picked up my 10-year-old grandson from school, his face was streaked with tears and dirt, his school uniform wrinkled from the altercation. The principal explained that other children had been teasing Tommy, saying I was too old to take care of him, that grandmas who raise kids are just babysitters who don't really love them. I stood up on my desk and yelled at everyone. Tommy sobbed into my arms. I told them my grandma is worth more than my dad, that you love me more than anyone in the whole world. My heart broke hearing those words. But what shattered me completely was what came next. "Grandma," Tommy whispered as we drove home, "why don't Daddy and Jessica want me to live with you anymore? I hear them talking at night when they think I'm sleeping. They say mean things about you that make me sad." I had raised Tommy since he was a baby. His father, Michael, my only son, had asked me to help when Tommy's mother left them. For 3 years, I had been Tommy's world, and he had been mine. But ever since Michael married Jessica, everything had changed. That night, I tucked Tommy into bed and promised him everything would be okay. But as I sat in my kitchen, staring at the half-finished cookies, I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was happening to our little family. I had no idea that my son and his wife had been planning something that would destroy everything I held dear. What I discovered over the next few days would prove that Tommy was right to defend me, because the people who were supposed to love us most had become our greatest enemies. The next morning, I decided to have a serious conversation with Tommy while we ate breakfast. I made his favorite pancakes, hoping the familiar comfort would help him open up. "Tommy, honey, can you tell me more about what Daddy and Jessica say at night?" He poked at his pancakes with his fork, avoiding my eyes. "They talk about money a lot. And about you getting old. Jessica always sounds angry when she says your name. What kind of things does she say about me?" Tommy's voice dropped to a whisper. "She calls you the old lady and says you're, what's that word, ... a burden. And Daddy doesn't tell her to stop." My heart sank. A burden. After 3 years of raising Tommy, of sacrificing my retirement savings for his clothes, his school supplies, his doctor visits, I was a burden. That afternoon, Michael came to pick up some of Tommy's clothes. He barely looked at me when he walked through the door. "Hey Mom, just grabbing some stuff for Tommy. Jessica thinks he should spend more time at our place." "Michael, we need to talk about what happened at school yesterday." He sighed heavily, like I was already bothering him. "Kids fight, Mom. It's not a big deal. It is a big deal when my grandson feels he has to defend me against other children." "What have you been telling people about our arrangement?" Michael's face tightened. "What arrangement? You mean you babysitting Tommy?" "Look, Mom, Jessica and I have been talking, and we think it's time Tommy starts living with his actual parents full-time." The way he said actual parents felt like a slap. "I've been raising Tommy for 3 years, Michael. I've been more of a parent to him than you have. And we're grateful for that," he said in a tone that suggested he was anything but grateful. "But you're getting older, Mom. You're 68. What if something happens to you? What if you get sick? Tommy needs stability." I had never felt more insulted in my life. "I'm in perfect health, Michael. I take better care of Tommy than you ever did." "That's not the point. The point is, Jessica and I are his parents. We make the decisions about his life, not you." After Michael left with a bag of Tommy's clothes, I sat in Tommy's room, looking at all the little traces of the life we'd built together. His drawings on the wall, his favorite books on the nightstand, the baseball glove I'd bought him for his birthday. That evening, my neighbor Eleanor knocked on my door. She was holding a casserole and wearing a concerned expression. "Rose, honey, I hope you don't mind me asking, but is everything okay with your family?" "What do you mean?" Eleanor glanced around nervously. "Well, yesterday I saw that woman, Jessica, talking to Mrs. Henderson from down the street. And I couldn't help but overhear some of what she was saying about you." My stomach dropped. "What was she saying?" She was asking Mrs. Henderson if she'd noticed you acting strange lately. Forgetting things, getting confused. She said she was worried about Tommy's safety. I felt dizzy. Jessica was spreading lies about me to the neighbors, making people think I was losing my mind. Eleanor, you've known me for 15 years. Have I seemed confused or forgetful to you? Of course not, Rose. You're sharp as a tack. That's why I thought it was so odd. But she seemed very concerned, very sincere. She even said she might need to call social services if things got worse. Social services. The words echoed in my mind long after Eleanor left. 2 days later, I was helping Tommy with his homework when he suddenly stopped writing and looked up at me with worried eyes. Grandma, what does custody mean? Where did you hear that word, sweetheart? Jessica was on the phone yesterday and I heard her say something about custody. She saw me listening and got really mad. She told Daddy I was being sneaky. My hands were shaking as I helped Tommy finish his math problems. That night, after he was asleep, I found myself going through my important papers, birth certificates, social security cards, insurance documents. Everything seemed to be in order, but something felt wrong. I decided to check my bank account online, something I usually did once a week. When the screen loaded, my breath caught in my throat. 3 withdrawals I didn't remember making. $500, $800, $300, all within the past month. I called the bank immediately, even though it was late. Mrs. Williams, those withdrawals were made with your debit card and PIN. The transactions show they were approved. But I didn't make those withdrawals. I never took out that much money. Do you share your card with anyone? A family member perhaps? Michael, I had given him my PIN years ago when his father died, in case of emergencies. He'd used it a few times to get groceries for me when I was sick. The next morning, I drove to the bank and asked to see the security footage from those withdrawals. My heart broke when I saw my own son on the screen, using my card to take my money. When I confronted Michael about the money, his reaction told me everything I needed to know. Mom, calm down. I borrowed some cash. I'll pay you back. Borrowed. Michael, you stole from me. I didn't steal anything. You're my mother. What's yours is basically mine anyway, right? Especially since we're taking care of Tommy now. You're not taking care of Tommy? I am. I have been for 3 years. His face hardened. Not for much longer, Mom. Jessica and I have been talking to some people about the situation, about what's best for Tommy. What people? People who understand child welfare. People who know what Tommy needs. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Jessica's questions to the neighbors. About the missing money. About Michael's strange confidence when he talked about Tommy's future. I was starting to realize that my son and his wife weren't just trying to take Tommy away from me. They were trying to destroy me completely. The next few days felt like I was living in a nightmare. Tommy seemed more withdrawn, spending more time at Michael and Jessica's apartment. When he was with me, he was quieter than usual, often staring out the window with a sad expression that broke my heart. On Friday evening, Tommy came home from a visit with his father and immediately ran to his room. I found him lying on his bed, clutching his stuffed elephant. What's wrong, sweetheart? Grandma, Jessica showed me pictures of a boarding school today. She said I might go there next year. My blood ran cold. A boarding school. What kind of boarding school? She said it's where smart boys go when their families want them to have the best education. But Grandma, I don't want to go away to school. I want to stay here with you. I held Tommy close, trying to keep my voice steady. Did Daddy say you were going to boarding school? He said maybe. He said it depends on some grown-up stuff I wouldn't understand. After Tommy fell asleep, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of tea, trying to piece together what was happening. The unauthorized bank withdrawals. Jessica spreading lies to the neighbors. Questions about boarding school. Michael's sudden confidence about making decisions for Tommy. I decided to call my old friend Margaret, who had worked in family services for 30 years before retiring. Margaret, if someone wanted to get custody of a child away from a grandparent, how would they do it? Well, Rose, They'd have to prove that the grandparent was unfit, or that the situation was harmful to the child. Why are you asking? I explained everything that had been happening. The school incident, the money, Jessica's comments to neighbors. Margaret was quiet for a long moment. Rose, it sounds like they're building a case against you. The questions about your mental state, the implication that you're too old to care for Tommy, even taking money from your account could be used to suggest you're not managing your finances properly. But that's not true. Michael stole that money. Can you prove it? Do you have evidence that you didn't give him permission? I realized I didn't. Michael could easily claim I had asked him to withdraw the money and simply forgotten about it. Who would believe a 68-year-old woman over her responsible, married son? The next morning, I decided to drive by Michael and Jessica's apartment. I didn't plan to stop, just wanted to see if Tommy was okay. As I sat in my car across the street, I saw Jessica come out with a manila folder under her arm. She got into her car and drove toward downtown. Something told me to follow her. Jessica parked in front of a law office. I watched as she walked inside, still carrying that folder. Family Law Associates. The sign outside made my stomach churn. I sat in my car for 2 hours, waiting for Jessica to come out. When she finally did, she was talking on her phone. I rolled down my window, hoping to catch some of what she was saying. ... Should be easy to prove she's too old and unstable. Bank records show financial irresponsibility. Neighbors will testify about concerning behavior. ... I felt sick. Jessica was talking to someone about me, about building a legal case to take Tommy away. That evening, when Michael came to pick up more of Tommy's things, I confronted him directly. I saw Jessica at a lawyer's office today. His face went white for just a moment, then he recovered. Jessica has every right to seek legal advice about Tommy's welfare. Legal advice about taking him away from me. Mom, you're paranoid. Nobody's trying to take Tommy away from you. We just want what's best for him. And you think what's best for him is boarding school, away from the only stable home he's ever known. Michael's mask slipped completely. Maybe it is. Maybe Tommy needs to be around normal families, not stuck with an old woman who's losing her grip on reality. The cruelty in his words stunned me. This wasn't the son I had raised. This wasn't the boy I had sacrificed everything for after his father died. I raised you alone after your father passed away, I said quietly. I worked 2 jobs to put you through college. I never remarried because I wanted to focus on being your mother, and this is how you repay me. I didn't ask you to do any of that, Michael snapped. And I didn't ask you to raise my son either. That was your choice. It was your choice to. You begged me to help when Tommy's mother left. You said you couldn't do it alone. That was temporary. Jessica and I are ready to be real parents now. You want to send him to boarding school. How is that being real parents? Michael grabbed the bag of Tommy's clothes more aggressively than necessary. Tommy will get the best education money can buy. He'll be around other successful kids, not stuck in this old house with someone who can't even remember her own bank transactions. There it was. He was going to use the stolen money as evidence that I was losing my mental faculties. After Michael left, I called Tommy at their apartment. Hi, Grandma. His little voice sounded so sad. Hi, sweetheart. How are you doing? Jessica made me pack more of my toys. She said I need to get used to living here. Tommy, I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. Do you want to live with Daddy and Jessica full-time? There was a long pause. No, Grandma, I want to live with you. But Jessica said if I don't start behaving better and being grateful for their family, I might have to go live with strangers. Live with strangers. She was threatening a 10-year-old child. Tommy, has anyone asked you questions about me? About whether I take good care of you? Jessica asks me lots of questions. Like if you ever forget things, or if you ever seem confused, or if you ever leave me alone. I tell her no because it's not true, but she keeps asking. They were coaching my grandson, trying to get him to say negative things about me. That night, I made a decision. If Michael and Jessica wanted to play dirty, I was going to fight back. But first, I needed to know exactly what I was up against. I was going to find out just how far they were willing to go to destroy me. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to find out exactly what Michael and Jessica were planning, and I was going to get proof. I started by calling my bank and requesting copies of all my account activity for the past 6 months. When the statements arrived, I spread them out on my kitchen table and went through every transaction with a magnifying glass. The pattern was clear. Small withdrawals at first, then larger ones, always on days when Tommy was with Michael and Jessica overnight. They had been systematically draining my account for months, probably hoping I wouldn't notice. But the bank statements revealed something else that made my blood run cold. There were inquiries on my account from someone claiming to be researching my financial competency. The bank had noted it in their system but hadn't thought to inform me. I called the bank manager immediately. "Mrs. Williams, yes, we did receive an inquiry about your account status. Someone claiming to be your son's attorney asked about any unusual spending patterns or signs of financial confusion." "And what did you tell them?" "We couldn't give specific information without a court order. But we did confirm that there had been some irregular withdrawal patterns." Irregular withdrawal patterns. They were building a case that I was financially irresponsible or mentally declining. That afternoon, I did something I had never done before. I installed a small voice recorder in Tommy's backpack. I felt terrible about it, but I needed to know what was happening when he was with his father. The first recording nearly broke my heart. I could hear Jessica's voice clearly as she questioned Tommy. "Tommy, does Grandma ever seem confused? Like, does she ever forget where she put things or ask you the same question twice?" "No, Jessica. Grandma is really smart. She helps me with my homework, and she never forgets anything. But what about when she's cooking? Does she ever leave things on the stove and forget about them?" "No, she always sets timers for everything." There was a pause, then Jessica's voice again, more frustrated. "Tommy, I need you to really think about this. Sometimes old people seem fine, but they're actually sick in their minds. Has Grandma ever done anything that worried you?" "She's not sick, Jessica. She takes really good care of me." "Well, maybe you just don't notice because you're used to it. Children don't always see when adults have problems." I had to stop the recording. They were trying to convince my 10-year-old grandson that I was mentally ill. The next day, I decided to visit Eleanor again. If Jessica was spreading rumors about me to the neighbors, I needed to know exactly what she was saying. "Eleanor, you mentioned that Jessica was asking Mrs. Henderson about me. Has she talked to anyone else on the street?" Eleanor looked uncomfortable. "Rose, I probably shouldn't have said anything. Double quotes please, Eleanor. This is important." She sighed. "She's been to at least 3 houses that I know of. Mrs. Patterson, the Johnsons, and the new couple who moved in last month. She's asking everyone the same types of questions." "What kinds of questions?" "About whether we've noticed you acting strangely, forgetting things, seeming confused. She said she was worried about Tommy's safety, but didn't want to cause trouble if it wasn't necessary." I felt sick. Jessica had systematically gone to multiple neighbors, planting seeds of doubt about my mental state. "Eleanor, what did you tell her?" "I told her the truth, Rose, that you're one of the sharpest people I know." But I have to say, she seemed disappointed by that answer. That evening, I made another difficult decision. I called my old friend Robert Thompson, who had been the family's lawyer when my husband was alive. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but I needed legal advice. "Robert, I think my son is trying to take my grandson away from me, and I need to know what my rights are." I explained everything to Robert: the money, the neighbors, Jessica's visit to the law office, the questions they were asking Tommy. "Rose, this sounds like they're building a case for a custody change based on your alleged incompetence. The good news is that you have legal standing as Tommy's primary caregiver for the past 3 years. The bad news is that if they can convince a judge that you're not fit to care for him, biology will win. What do I need to do to protect myself? First, we need to document everything, every interaction, every lie they tell, every attempt to manipulate the situation. Second, We need character witnesses, people who can testify to your competence and your relationship with Tommy. Third, we need to be proactive. If we wait for them to file first, we'll be on the defensive. That night, I started a journal. I wrote down every conversation, every incident, every lie I could remember from the past few months. The next morning brought a surprise visitor. A woman in her 40s, wearing a professional suit and carrying a briefcase, knocked on my door. "Mrs. Williams, I'm Sarah Mitchell from Child Protective Services. I've received some concerning reports about the welfare of a child in this household." My knees went weak. They had called CPS on me. "What kinds of reports?" "Reports suggesting that you may not be capable of properly caring for your grandson due to age-related cognitive decline and financial irresponsibility." I invited Ms. Mitchell inside, trying to stay calm. She walked through my house, noting everything. Tommy's clean, organized room. The refrigerator full of healthy food. The homework schedule posted on the wall. "Mrs. Williams, can you tell me about your relationship with Tommy's parents?" I chose my words carefully. "My son asked me to help care for Tommy when his mother left 3 years ago. I've been his primary caregiver since then. And how do you feel about the suggestion that Tommy should live full-time with his father and stepmother?" "I think Tommy should be wherever he's happiest and safest. He's thrived in my care for 3 years. Ms. Mitchell made notes. "I need to ask you some questions about your mental and physical health. Have you been experiencing any memory problems, confusion, or difficulty managing daily tasks?" "No. I'm in excellent health, both mentally and physically." "What about your finances? I understand there have been some irregularities in your banking." There it was. They had told CPS about the money Michael had stolen from my account. My son has been making unauthorized withdrawals from my account. I discovered this recently and I'm addressing it legally. Ms. Mitchell raised an eyebrow. "You're saying your own son stole from you?" "I'm saying he took money without my permission." "Yes." After Ms. Mitchell left, I immediately called Robert Thompson. "They've escalated. Robert, CPS was just here." "What did you tell them?" "The truth." "Good. Don't lie or try to hide anything. The truth is your best defense. But Rose, we need to move faster. If CPS recommends removing Tommy from your care, even temporarily, it becomes much harder to get him back." That afternoon, I did something that felt like a betrayal but was necessary for Tommy's protection. I installed a recording app on my phone and called Michael. "Michael, we need to talk about this CPS visit." "What CPS visit?" His voice was too innocent. "Don't play games with me. Someone reported me for being unfit to care for Tommy." "Mom, I have no idea what you're talking about." "Michael, I know you and Jessica are behind this. I know about the lawyer visits, the questions to neighbors, the money you've been stealing from my account." There was a long pause. When Michael spoke again, his voice was cold. "If CPS visited you, Mom, it's because someone is concerned about Tommy's welfare. Maybe you should ask yourself why multiple people are worried about your ability to care for a child." "What multiple people?" "You and Jessica are the only ones saying these things." "That's not true, and you know it." Mrs. Henderson called Jessica last week, worried about some things she'd observed. "The Johnsons have noticed you seeming confused when they've talked to you." Lies. All lies. Mrs. Henderson had never expressed concern about me to Jessica. Jessica had approached her with leading questions. "Michael, why are you doing this? Tommy is happy with me. He's safe, he's healthy, he's doing well in school. Tommy needs to be with his real parents, Mom, not with someone who's losing her grip on reality." "I'm not losing my grip on anything, really." "Then why can't you remember giving me permission to use your bank card? Why did you accuse me of stealing when you know you told me I could take that money?" I almost fell for it. For just a moment, I questioned myself. Had the first given him permission and forgotten? No, I knew I hadn't. This was gaslighting, pure and simple. "Michael, I never gave you permission to take nearly $2,000 from my account." "See, you can't even remember how much money you're talking about." "Mom, this is exactly what we're worried about." After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen, shaking. They were good at this. Very good. For just a moment, Michael had made me doubt my own memory. That evening, when Tommy came home from school, he seemed more upset than usual. "Grandma, a lady came to my classroom today and asked me questions about you." My heart sank. CPS had interviewed Tommy at school. What kinds of questions did she ask? She asked if you ever seemed confused or if I ever felt unsafe with you. She asked if you remembered to give me meals and help me with homework. What did you tell her? I told her the truth, that you're the best grandma in the world, and that I'm happy living with you. Tommy climbed into my lap, something he rarely did anymore at 10 years old. "Grandma, are they going to take me away from you?" I held him tight, trying not to cry. "I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen, sweetheart. But what if they do? What if I have to live with Daddy and Jessica all the time?" "Tommy, do you want to live with your daddy full time?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I love Daddy, but Jessica doesn't like me very much. She pretends to when other people are around, but when it's just us, she's mean. And she's always asking me questions about you, trying to get me to say bad things." "What kinds of bad things? Like that you're forgetful, or that you don't take good care of me?" "But I won't say those things because they're not true." My heart was breaking for this little boy, caught in the middle of adult games he couldn't understand. That night, after Tommy was asleep, I made another recording. I called Jessica directly. "Jessica, we need to stop this. Tommy is getting hurt by all the conflict." "Rose, there wouldn't be any conflict if you would just accept that it's time for Tommy to live with his real parents. I am his real family. I've raised him for 3 years. You've been babysitting him for 3 years. There's a difference." "Is that what you tell him? That I'm just his babysitter?" "I tell him the truth. That Michael and I are his parents, and that we make the decisions about his life, and the boarding school." "Is that one of your decisions?" There was a pause. "Tommy would benefit from a structured environment with other children his age. Tommy is 10 years old. He needs family, not a boarding school. He needs what's best for his future, not what makes an old woman feel useful." The cruelty in her voice was breathtaking. "Jessica, why do you hate me so much? What have I ever done to you?" "You haven't done anything to me, Rose. But you're standing in the way of my family's future. Tommy will inherit a substantial amount of money when you die, and we need to make sure that money is managed properly." There it was. The truth. It wasn't about Tommy's welfare, or my mental competence. It was about money, my money. So this is all about my inheritance. This is about Tommy's inheritance. Money that could pay for the best education, the best opportunities. Money that's currently being wasted on an old woman's living expenses. I felt like I was going to be sick. "You want me to die so you can have my money?" I didn't say that. "But when you do pass away, Tommy's inheritance needs to be protected. And it's hard to do that when you're making questionable financial decisions." "What questionable decisions?" "Like giving money to your son without remembering it. Like paying bills twice because you forgot you already paid them." More lies. I had never paid bills twice or made any other financial mistakes. After I hung up, I sat in the dark for hours, thinking about what I had learned. They wanted my money, and they were willing to destroy my relationship with Tommy to get control of it. They were willing to lie to social services, manipulate neighbors, and traumatize a child. But I had something they didn't expect. I had recorded evidence of their lies and manipulation. I had bank records showing their theft, and I had Tommy's own testimony about their behavior. The war was just beginning, and I was finally ready to fight back. The next morning, I called Robert Thompson with a new sense of urgency. "Robert, I have recorded proof of their motives. It's about money, not Tommy's welfare." "That's excellent, Rose. We need every piece of evidence we can get. But we also need to be strategic about how we use it." "What do you mean?" "If we reveal everything we know too early, they'll change their tactics. We need to let them commit further, give them enough rope to hang themselves legally speaking." That afternoon, I decided to test Jessica's story about the neighbors. I walked down the street to Mrs. Henderson's house. "Mrs. Henderson, I hope you don't mind me asking, but did you call Jessica recently with concerns about me? The elderly woman looked confused. Call Jessica? No, dear. She came to me with questions about you. Very strange questions, asking if I'd noticed you acting oddly or seeming confused. And what did you tell her? I told her she was being ridiculous. You're one of the most reliable people in the neighborhood. I said if anyone should be worried about mental health, it should be her for asking such inappropriate questions about her family. So Jessica had lied to Michael about Mrs. Henderson calling her with concerns. I walked to the Johnsons' house next. Mrs. Johnson answered the door with a warm smile. Rose, how lovely to see you. How's little Tommy doing? He's doing well, thank you. Mrs. Johnson, I need to ask you about something. Did you have a conversation with my daughter-in-law Jessica about me recently? Her expression darkened. That woman came to my door last week with the most intrusive questions, asking if I'd noticed you seeming forgetful or confused. I told her I'd never seen any such thing and that I thought her questions were highly inappropriate. Did you tell her you were concerned about my ability to care for Tommy? Absolutely not. I told her that boy was lucky to have such a devoted grandmother. She didn't seem pleased with that answer. I now had proof that Jessica had lied about the neighbors expressing concerns, but I needed more evidence of their broader conspiracy. That evening, I made a decision that would give me the information I needed. I drove to Michael and Jessica's apartment and parked across the street, waiting. Around 9 o'clock, I saw Jessica come out to her car with what looked like a manila folder. She drove downtown, and I followed at a distance. She parked in front of the same law office I'd seen her visit before. But this time, she wasn't alone. Michael was waiting for her outside the building. I watched as they went inside together, staying for over an hour. When they came out, they were arguing. I rolled down my window, hoping to hear something useful. Double quotes ... Told you this was taking too long, Michael was saying. She's getting suspicious. These things take time. Jessica replied. We can't rush the legal process. What if she fights us? What if she gets her own lawyer? Then we make sure the evidence against her is overwhelming. The CPS report should help. And if necessary, we can arrange for more concerning incidents. Arrange for more concerning incidents. What did that mean? They walked toward their cars, still talking. The boarding school application deadline is next month. Jessica said we need this resolved by then. What about the house? When can we start the process of selling it? Once we have legal guardianship, we can petition the court to liquidate her assets for Tommy's care. The house, her savings, everything. My blood ran cold. They weren't just planning to take Tommy. They were planning to take everything I owned. I drove home in a daze, trying to process what I had heard. They had a timeline. They had a legal strategy. And they were prepared to fabricate evidence against me if necessary. The next morning, I called Robert Thompson with everything I had learned. Rose, this is more serious than I initially thought. They're planning a complete financial takeover. We need to act immediately to protect your assets. What can we do? First, we're going to file for emergency custody confirmation, establishing your legal right to continue caring for Tommy. Second, we're going to report the financial theft to the police. Third, we're going to get restraining orders to prevent them from harassing you or interfering with Tommy's care. Will that be enough? It's a start. But Rose, you need to be prepared for this to get ugly. They're not going to back down easily. That afternoon, Tommy came home from school more upset than I'd ever seen him. Grandma, Jessica picked me up from school today instead of the bus. She drove me to a big building downtown and there was a man there who asked me lots of questions. My heart stopped. What kinds of questions? He asked if I felt safe with you, if you ever seemed confused or forgot things. He asked if I would rather live with Daddy and Jessica all the time. What did you tell him? I told him I wanted to stay with you. But Jessica got really mad. On the way home, she said if I kept being difficult, I might have to go live with strangers who wouldn't love me at all. They had taken my grandson to their lawyer without my permission. subjecting him to inappropriate questioning and then threatening him when he didn't give the answers they wanted. Tommy, from now on, if anyone tries to pick you up from school, who isn't me, you tell them no and you call me immediately. Okay, Grandma, but what if they don't listen? I knelt down to Tommy's level, looking him in the eyes. Tommy, I need you to know something very important. No matter what anyone tells you, I will never stop fighting to keep you safe and with me. Do you understand? He nodded, tears in his eyes. I don't want to live anywhere else, Grandma. I just want to stay here with you. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for them to make their next move. I was going to expose their lies and their illegal activities before they could destroy my family any further. I had recorded conversations proving their motives were financial. I had bank records showing theft. I had testimony from neighbors proving Jessica had lied about their concerns. I had Tommy's own account of their manipulation and threats. It was time to go on the offensive. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of determination I hadn't felt in months. I called Robert Thompson first thing. Robert, I'm ready to file everything. The custody petition, the theft charges, all of it. Are you sure, Rose? Once we do this, there's no going back. I'm sure. They've crossed every line there is to cross. We spent 2 hours at Robert's office, preparing the legal documents, emergency petition for continued custody of Tommy, criminal complaint for theft and financial elder abuse, documentation of harassment and intimidation. Rose, I want you to be prepared for their reaction. They're going to escalate when they realize you're fighting back. I had no idea how right he was. That afternoon, while Tommy was at school, Michael and Jessica arrived at my house unannounced. But this time, they weren't alone. They had brought 2 people with them, a man in a suit who introduced himself as Dr. Richards, and a woman with a clipboard who said she was a social worker named Ms. Patterson. Mom, we're here for an intervention, Michael said, his voice fake concerned. We've brought some professionals to help assess the situation. What situation? I asked, though I knew exactly what they were doing. Dr. Richards stepped forward. Mrs. Williams, your family has expressed serious concerns about your mental health and your ability to safely care for your grandson. We're here to conduct an evaluation. I don't consent to any evaluation. Jessica's mask slipped for just a moment. You don't have a choice, Rose. We have legal authority to ensure Tommy's safety. What legal authority? I demanded. Ms. Patterson held up some papers. We have a court order for an emergency evaluation based on reports of elder mental health decline and child endangerment. My blood ran cold. They had somehow gotten a court order without my knowledge. I want to call my lawyer. Of course, Dr. Richards said in a patronizing tone. But we need to proceed with the evaluation first. It's for your own safety. They had trapped me. If I refused, they could claim I was being uncooperative and mentally unstable. If I agreed, they could twist anything I said. For the next hour, Dr. Richards asked me questions designed to make me sound confused or forgetful. He asked about dates, current events, and mathematical calculations. He asked about my daily routine, my relationship with Tommy, and my financial management. All the while, Michael and Jessica sat in my living room, watching with barely concealed satisfaction. Mrs. Williams, Dr. Richards said, your son tells me you've been having trouble managing your finances. Can you tell me about the recent bank withdrawals? My son stole money from my account without permission. Now, Mrs. Williams, that's a very serious accusation. Are you sure you didn't give him permission and simply forgot about it? I'm absolutely sure. But memory problems are common at your age. It's possible you authorized the withdrawals and don't recall doing so. I realized what was happening. Every answer I gave was being twisted to support their narrative. Dr. Richards, can I see your credentials? Who hired you to conduct this evaluation? His expression flickered slightly. I'm a licensed psychologist, Mrs. Williams. Your family hired me because they're concerned about you. Show me your license. The room went silent. Dr. Richards exchanged glances with Jessica. Double quotes, Mrs. Williams. I don't carry my physical license with me. But I can assure you, then this evaluation is over. I stood up and walked to my phone. I'm calling the police. Mom, don't be ridiculous, Michael said, jumping up. We're trying to help you. By bringing a fake doctor to my house to declare me mentally incompetent. Jessica's composure finally cracked completely. He's not fake, you paranoid old woman. We paid good money for a professional evaluation. You paid for someone to rubber stamp your lies. Ms. Patterson, who had been quiet through most of this, suddenly spoke up. Mrs. Williams, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not actually a social worker. Jessica hired me to play a role. The room erupted. Jessica screamed at the woman to shut up. Michael grabbed his wife's arm, trying to get her to calm down. Dr. Richards started backing toward the door. You hired actors? I asked, incredulous. You brought fake professionals to my house. They're not fake, Jessica screamed. Dr. Richards is a real psychologist, who you paid to give a predetermined diagnosis. Dr. Richards finally spoke up. I think I should leave. This situation has become uncomfortable. After they left, Michael and Jessica remained in my living room. Their carefully constructed plan in ruins. Mom, you don't understand what you're doing, Michael said, his voice shaking with rage. You're forcing us to take more drastic measures. What measures? We have documentation of your mental decline. We have witnesses to your erratic behavior. We have evidence of financial irresponsibility. You have lies and fabricated evidence. We have whatever we need to get custody of Tommy, Jessica snarled. And there's nothing you can do to stop us. I looked at my son, this man I had raised with love and sacrifice, who was now threatening to destroy my life for money. Michael, this is your last chance to stop this madness. Walk away now, and we can try to rebuild our relationship. The only thing I'm walking away from is this house, he replied coldly. When we get custody of Tommy, we're selling this place. The money will go into a trust for Tommy's education. A trust that you'll control, a trust that his parents will control. Yes. That's when I played my final card. Michael, before you say anything else, I want you to know that this entire conversation has been recorded. The color drained from his face. What? I held up my phone, which had been recording since they arrived. Everything you've said today, everything Jessica has admitted, it's all been recorded. Jessica lunged for my phone, but I pulled it away. You can't use that. It's illegal to record people without consent. Actually, in this state, I only need one party's consent. And since this is my house and I'm part of the conversation, the recording is perfectly legal. You don't know what you're doing, Michael said, but his voice had lost all its confidence. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm protecting my grandson from people who see him as a meal ticket. We love Tommy. You love what Tommy represents. Money, an inheritance you can control. Jessica's mask had completely fallen away now. You're going to die soon anyway, you selfish old bitch. Why can't you just make this easy and sign everything over now? Because I'm not dying anytime soon. And because Tommy deserves better than parents who hired fake professionals to manipulate a custody evaluation. Michael grabbed Jessica's arm, trying to get her to stop talking, but the damage was done. We're leaving, he said. But this isn't over, Mom. We're going to court tomorrow. We're going to get an emergency custody order, and Tommy is never coming back to this house. No, you're not. What do you mean? I reached into my purse and pulled out a thick manila folder. While you were hiring fake doctors, I was filing real legal documents. Emergency custody, petition, criminal charges for theft, and restraining orders against both of you. You can't do that. We're his parents, and I'm his legal guardian for the past 3 years. I have more standing than you think. Jessica started crying, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of frustrated rage. You've ruined everything, she screamed. We needed that money. Michael owes people, serious people, who don't like to wait for payment. Michael grabbed her arm roughly. Shut up, Jessica. But she was beyond caring now. No. She needs to know what she's doing to us. We owe $40,000 to people who break legs when they don't get paid. We needed her money to pay them off. $40,000. I looked at my son in shock. Michael, What have you gotten yourself into? It's not your concern, Mom. It is my concern when you're trying to steal from me, to pay gambling debts. They're not gambling debts, Jessica sobbed. They're business investments that went wrong. Michael borrowed money to start a company, and it failed. The whole picture was becoming clear. They weren't just greedy, they were desperate. They owed money to dangerous people and saw my assets as their only way out. Mom, Michael said, and for the first time in months, his voice sounded like the son I remembered. Please. These people, they're not joking around. If I don't pay them soon, then you should have come to me honestly and asked for help, instead of trying to destroy my relationship with Tommy and steal everything I own. Would you have given us $40,000? I might have, but now, after everything you've done, never. Jessica stood up abruptly. Then we're done here. Michael, call Vincent. Tell him we need to accelerate the timeline. Who's Vincent? I asked. Michael's face went white. Nobody, Mom, just forget about it. But Jessica was past caring about secrets. Vincent is the person who's going to make sure you have an accident. You stubborn old bitch. Something that looks natural but gets you out of our way permanently. The room went dead silent. Had she just threatened to have me killed? Jessica, shut up. Michael shouted. No. She needs to understand the stakes here. We're not playing games anymore. I looked at my son. Michael, are you seriously threatening to have me murdered? Mom, she doesn't mean that. She's just upset. I mean every word of it. Jessica snarled. You're standing between us and survival. We tried to do this the easy way, but if you won't cooperate, we'll find another solution. I realized that I wasn't just fighting for custody of Tommy anymore. I was fighting for my life. That's when Tommy walked in. He had gotten home from school early, and he heard everything. His little face was white with shock and fear. Daddy? Jessica. What did you just say about Grandma? The room fell silent. Michael and Jessica looked like deer caught in headlights. Tommy, sweetheart, I said, walking over to him. Go to your room for a few minutes while the adults finish talking. No, Tommy said, his voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. I want to know what Jessica meant about making Grandma have an accident. Jessica tried to switch back to her fake sweet voice. Tommy, honey, we were just having a grown-up discussion. Sometimes adults say things they don't mean when they're upset. You said someone named Vincent was going to hurt Grandma. Michael knelt down to Tommy's level. Son, nobody's going to hurt Grandma. Jessica was just angry and said something stupid. But Tommy wasn't buying it anymore. At 10 years old, he had heard enough lies from these people. You've been lying about Grandma, he said, his voice shaking with emotion. You've been telling people she's sick when she's not. You've been trying to make me say bad things about her. Tommy, that's not true, Jessica said, but her voice lacked conviction. Yes, it is. Tommy's voice rose. I heard you on the phone with that fake doctor. You told him what to ask me. You told him to make it sound like Grandma was crazy. Michael and Jessica exchanged panicked looks. They hadn't realized Tommy had overheard their coaching sessions with Dr. Richards. And I heard you talking about selling Grandma's house and spending her money, Tommy continued, tears streaming down his face. You don't love me. You just want Grandma's money. That's not true, Tommy, Michael said desperately. We love you very much. If you loved me, you wouldn't try to take me away from the person who actually takes care of me. Tommy walked over to me and grabbed my hand. Grandma, I don't want to live with them. They're mean, and they lie all the time. Jessica lost control completely. You ungrateful little brat. Do you have any idea what we've sacrificed for you? We could have put you in foster care when your mother left. Jessica. Michael shouted, No, Michael. I'm done pretending to like this kid. He's been nothing but trouble from day one. And now he's turning against us just like his crazy grandmother. Tommy recoiled as if he'd been slapped. You. You don't want me either. I knelt down and pulled Tommy into my arms. Sweetheart, you are wanted and loved. You're the most important thing in my world. But they're my daddy and my mom. They're supposed to love me too. I looked up at Michael. Tell him, Michael, Tell your son that you love him. Michael opened his mouth but no words came out. The silence stretched on until it was deafening. Finally, Jessica spoke. He's a means to an end, Michael. He always has been. The inheritance, the life insurance, the trust fund, it's all about the money. It's always been about the money. Tommy's sobs broke my heart. This 10-year-old boy was learning that his father and stepmother saw him as nothing more than a financial asset. Get out, I said quietly. What? Michael asked. Get out of my house. Now, both of you. Mom, we need to finish this conversation. The conversation is over. You have 10 seconds to leave before I call the police. You can't keep us from our son. Watch me. As they walked toward the door, Jessica turned back one more time. This isn't over, Rose. We know where you live. We know Tommy's schedule. We know when you're vulnerable. Is that another threat? It's a promise. One way or another, we're getting what we're owed. After they left, I held Tommy while he cried. When he finally calmed down, I looked him in the eyes. Tommy, I need you to understand something very important. Your daddy is sick. Not sick in his body, but sick in his heart. He's made some very bad choices, and those choices have changed him into someone we don't recognize. Does he really not love me? I think he loves the idea of you, but he's forgotten how to love people more than he loves money. And that's not your fault, that's his fault. What's going to happen now? Now, we're going to make sure you're safe. We're going to fight for our family, and we're going to win. That night, after Tommy was asleep, I called Robert Thompson and told him about the threats. Rose, you need to call the police immediately. Death threats are a felony, and you have them recorded. What about Tommy? If they arrest Michael and Jessica, what happens to him? You already have de facto custody. With the restraining orders we filed today, they can't take him anywhere. But Rose, you need to take these threats seriously. If they really owe money to dangerous people, ... double quotes, I know. I'm scared, Robert. Not for myself, but for Tommy. I'm going to call a friend of mine who works in law enforcement. You need police protection until this is resolved. As I hung up the phone, I looked around my house, the place where I had raised my son, where I had been raising my grandson, where I had planned to live out my golden years in peace. Now it felt like a battleground. But I wasn't giving up. I wasn't giving in. Tommy needed me, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my own son, destroy the family we had built together. The real fight was just beginning. The next morning, I woke up to find a police car parked outside my house. Officer Martinez, a kind-looking woman in her 40s, knocked on my door at 7 a.m. Mrs. Williams, I'm here about the threats you reported last night. We're taking this very seriously. I invited her in and played the recordings I had made. Her expression grew darker with each threat Jessica and Michael had made. Mrs. Williams, these are credible death threats. We're going to arrest both of them today. But I need you to understand that once we do this, they might make bail, and they could become even more desperate. What do you suggest I do? Pack a bag for you and Tommy. We have a safe house where you can stay until this is resolved. Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was Tommy's school. Mrs. Williams, there's been an incident. 2 people claiming to be Tommy's parents tried to check him out of school early, but Tommy refused to go with them. He's asking for you. My blood went cold. They were trying to kidnap Tommy from school. Officer Martinez. They're at Tommy's school right now. She immediately called for backup and we raced to Lincoln Elementary. When we arrived, I could see Michael and Jessica arguing with Principal Martinez in the office, while Tommy sat in a chair, tears streaming down his face but refusing to budge. That's my grandson, I shouted, running toward the office. The moment Tommy saw me, he broke free and ran into my arms. Grandma. They tried to make me go with them, but I remembered what you said about not going anywhere without you. Officer Martinez approached Michael and Jessica with her hand on her weapon. Sir, ma'am, I need you to step outside. This is our son, Jessica protested. We have every right to take him. Actually, you don't. Officer Martinez held up the court documents. There's a restraining order that specifically prohibits you from removing the child from his grandmother's care. This is ridiculous. Michael shouted. She's my mother. She can't get a restraining order against me. She can, and she did. Michael Hayes and Jessica Hayes, you're both under arrest for making terroristic threats, attempted kidnapping, and violation of a restraining order. As they handcuffed my son, he looked at me with a mixture of rage and desperation. Mom, you don't know what you're doing. These people I owe money to. They don't care about restraining orders. They don't care about police. When they don't get their money, they're going to come after all of us. Then you should have thought of that before you threatened to kill me. Jessica was screaming as they put her in the police car. You stupid old woman. You've signed all of our death warrants. Vincent doesn't leave loose ends. As the police cars drove away with Michael and Jessica, I held Tommy close. The other parents at the school were staring, whispering among themselves. The gossip would spread through town like wildfire. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. That afternoon, Robert Thompson came to my house with good news and bad news. The good news is that with the recordings and the attempted kidnapping, Michael and Jessica are going to be in jail for a while. The bad news is that they made bail faster than we expected. They're out already. How is that possible? Michael's father-in-law posted bail. But there's more, Rose. The police looked into this Vincent person Jessica mentioned. He's Vincent Torino, a known enforcer for illegal gambling operations. Michael really does owe $40,000 to very dangerous people. My blood ran cold. What does that mean for Tommy and me? It means we need to move you to that safe house immediately. And Rose, there's something else. While Michael and Jessica were in jail, someone broke into their apartment. Vincent, possibly. Their neighbors reported hearing yelling, furniture being thrown around. When the police got there, the place was trashed, and there was blood on the walls. I felt sick. Are they Michael and Jessica? They're alive, but they're scared. Vincent's people left a message. They want their money by tomorrow night, or everyone connected to Michael is going to pay the price. Everyone connected to him. That includes Tommy and me. That's why you're going into protective custody tonight. As we packed our bags, Tommy was unusually quiet. Finally, he looked up at me with those big brown eyes. Grandma, are we going to be okay? I knelt down to his level. Tommy, I promise you that I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. These bad people can't hurt us as long as we stay with the police officers who are protecting us. But what about Daddy? Is he going to be okay? My heart broke for this little boy who still loved his father, despite everything that had happened. I don't know, sweetheart. Your daddy made some very bad choices, and now he has to face the consequences. We spent 3 days in the safe house, a small apartment guarded by police officers around the clock. On the 3rd day, Officer Martinez came with news. Mrs. Williams, there's been a development. Vincent Torino was arrested last night in connection with an illegal gambling operation. With him off the streets, the immediate threat to you and Tommy has been reduced. What about Michael and Jessica? They've agreed to cooperate with the district attorney's office. In exchange for their testimony against Torino's organization, they'll receive reduced sentences for the threats against you. Reduced sentences. They threatened to kill me. I understand your frustration, Mrs. Williams, but their cooperation is helping us take down a much larger criminal organization. Sometimes the system isn't perfect, but it's the best we can do. 2 weeks later, we were back in our own house, but everything had changed. Tommy was seeing a counselor to help him process everything that had happened. I had changed all the locks, installed a security system, and kept the phone numbers of 3 different police officers on speed dial. Michael and Jessica were sentenced to 2 years in prison for the threats and attempted kidnapping. But the real justice came in a different form. 1 month after their arrest, I received a call from the district attorney's office. Mrs. Williams, during our investigation into Michael and Jessica's finances, we discovered something interesting. They've been running a credit card scam using your personal information. The credit card companies are pressing charges for identity theft and fraud. It turned out that Michael and Jessica had opened 7 different credit cards in my name, running up over $60,000 in debt. But because I had reported the identity theft and had documentation proving I was a victim, the credit card companies were going after Michael and Jessica for the full amount. They'll be responsible for paying back every penny, plus interest and penalties. If they can't pay, their wages will be garnished for the next 20 years. The final piece of justice came from an unexpected source. Tommy's school had been so impressed with how he had refused to go with Michael and Jessica that they nominated him for a Courage Award from the local Children's Advocacy Center. At the awards ceremony, Tommy stood up in front of 200 people and gave a speech that brought the entire audience to tears. "My name is Tommy Hayes, and I want to thank my Grandma Rose for teaching me that family isn't just about who you're related to. Family is about who loves you and takes care of you and keeps you safe." He looked right at me from the podium. "My grandma taught me that it's okay to say no to people who want to hurt you, even if those people are supposed to love you. She taught me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared." The applause was thunderous. As I watched my grandson accept his award, I realized that despite all the pain and trauma we had endured, something beautiful had come out of it. Tommy was stronger now. He was wiser. He knew the difference between people who truly loved him and people who just wanted to use him, and he knew that his Grandma Rose would fight heaven and earth to protect him. 3 months later, I received a letter in prison mail. It was from Michael. "Mom, I know you probably never want to hear from me again, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Being in here has given me time to think about what I became and how I hurt the people I was supposed to love." The letter went on for 3 pages, detailing his regrets, his shame, and his hope that someday Tommy might forgive him. I read it twice, then put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I would show it to Tommy, when he was old enough to decide for himself whether his father deserved forgiveness. But for now, we had a life to rebuild. 6 months after the arrests, Tommy and I were in the kitchen making chocolate chip cookies when he suddenly hugged me tight. "Grandma, do you think things will ever be normal again?" I looked around our kitchen, with its warm yellow walls and the smell of cookies baking in the oven. I looked at Tommy, healthy and happy and safe. I looked at the pictures on the refrigerator of our life together, school events, birthday parties, quiet moments at home. "Tommy, I think this is our normal, and I think it's pretty wonderful." He grinned up at me, chocolate chips smeared on his cheek. "Me too, Grandma, me too." 1 year later, the legal battles were finally over. Michael and Jessica had been sentenced to 5 years in prison for the combined charges of threats, attempted kidnapping, identity theft, and fraud. The credit card companies had seized their assets to pay back the money they had stolen in my name. But the most satisfying justice came in a form I never expected. Tommy's biological mother, Sarah, reached out to us after seeing news coverage of the case. She had been living in California, working as a nurse, and had been sending child support payments that Michael had been intercepting for years. "Mrs. Williams," she said during our first phone call, "I had no idea Michael was telling you I abandoned Tommy. I've been trying to stay in contact with my son for 3 years, but Michael kept saying you didn't want me involved." It turned out that Michael had been playing both sides, telling Sarah that I was hostile to her involvement, while telling me that she had disappeared completely. "Sarah, would you like to meet Tommy? He's old enough now to understand that families can be complicated." The reunion was beautiful. Sarah came to visit for a weekend, and I watched as Tommy carefully got to know the mother he had been told didn't want him. "I never stopped loving you," Sarah told Tommy, as they sat in our living room. "I thought about you every single day. Why didn't you come get me?" "Because I thought you were happy with your grandma, and I didn't want to disrupt the life you had built. But I should have fought harder. I should have known something was wrong when your father kept making excuses about why I couldn't visit." Sarah and I worked out an arrangement where Tommy would spend summers with her in California and holidays with me. For the first time in years, Tommy had a stable, loving family structure. The night before Tommy left for his first summer with Sarah, he sat on my bed while I helped him pack. "Grandma, I'm excited to spend time with my mom," but I'm going to miss you so much. I'm going to miss you too, sweetheart. But you know what's wonderful? You don't have to choose anymore. You get to have both of us loving you. Do you think Daddy will ever get better? I had been dreading this question, but I knew Tommy deserved an honest answer. I don't know, Tommy. Your daddy is very sick, and only he can decide if he wants to get better. But what I know for sure is that you are surrounded by people who love you for who you are, not for what you can give them. Like you and my mom, like me and your mom, and your teachers, and your friends, and everyone who sees what a special, brave, kind boy you are. 2 years later, I received another letter from Michael. This one was different. Mom, I've been in therapy in prison, and I'm starting to understand how wrong I was about everything. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I'm grateful Tommy had you to protect him from what I became. This letter went into the same drawer as the first one. Maybe someday Tommy would want to read them. Maybe someday Michael would prove that his words were backed up by real change. But for now, Tommy and I had built something better than what we had lost. We had built a family based on love, not obligation. Based on trust, not blood. Based on choice, not chance. On Tommy's 13th birthday, Sarah flew in from California to celebrate with us. As we sat around the dinner table, singing happy birthday and watching Tommy blow out his candles, I realized that the best revenge against Michael and Jessica's greed and cruelty was this: we were happy. Tommy was thriving in school. He had friends. He had 2 mothers who adored him. He had learned that he was worthy of love and protection. And I had learned that being a grandmother wasn't just about blood or legal documents. It was about showing up every day, fighting for what was right, and never giving up on the people who matter most. What did you wish for? Sarah asked Tommy as he blew out the last candle. Tommy looked at both of us with a smile that lit up the room. I wished for this. For us, for our family to stay together. That's not really a wish, sweetheart, I said, pulling him into a hug. That's a promise. As I tucked Tommy into bed that night, he asked me one more question. Grandma, do you think what happened to us was worth it? All the scary parts, I mean. I thought about it for a moment. The fear, the legal battles, the heartbreak of losing my son to his own greed and addiction. The nights I couldn't sleep, wondering if I was strong enough to protect this little boy who meant everything to me. Tommy, I think sometimes bad things happen so that better things can take their place. We lost your daddy and Jessica, but we found your mom again. We lost the family we thought we had, but we built the family we actually needed. So the bad guys actually helped us. I laughed softly. I wouldn't go that far, but their badness helped us find our goodness. Tommy was quiet for a moment, processing this. Grandma, yes, sweetheart. I'm glad you're worth more than my dad. My heart filled with so much love I thought it might burst. I'm glad you knew it when it mattered most. As I turned off Tommy's light and closed his door, I reflected on everything we had been through. The threats, the manipulation, the fear, the legal battles, but also the courage, the love, the community of people who had rallied around us, the strength we had found in each other. Michael and Jessica had tried to destroy our family for money. Instead, they had helped us build something stronger than we had ever imagined possible. True justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about protection. Sometimes it's about love winning over greed. Sometimes it's about a 10-year-old boy standing up in school and declaring that his grandma is worth more than his dad. And sometimes it's about proving him right. 5 years later, I'm sitting on my front porch watching Tommy, now 15, mow the lawn. He's grown so tall and strong, and his face has lost that haunted look it carried for months after the ordeal with his father. Sarah visits twice a year now, and Tommy spends every summer with her in California. We've built something I never thought possible, a blended family based on love and respect, rather than obligation and manipulation. This morning, Tommy got a letter from his father. It's been 3 years since Michael last wrote, and I was surprised to see the return address from the state penitentiary. Grandma, do you think I should read it? Tommy asked, turning the envelope over in his hands. That's entirely up to you, sweetheart. You don't owe him anything. But you also have the right to know what he wants to say. Tommy thought about it for a long moment, then tore open the envelope. As he read, I watched his expression carefully, looking for signs of the old pain or confusion. Instead, I saw something I'd never expected: pity. He says he's been clean for 2 years and he's found religion, Tommy said quietly. He wants to apologize and asks if I might visit him someday. How does that make you feel? Tommy shrugged, more mature than any 15-year-old should have to be. I feel sorry for him, I guess, but I don't trust him. Does that make me a bad person? It makes you a smart person. Trust has to be earned back, and your father has a lot of work to do before he deserves that. What about you? Do you think you'll ever forgive him? I've thought about this question many times over the years. Michael destroyed so much: our family, Tommy's sense of security, years of our lives. But holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. I've forgiven him for my own peace of mind, I said carefully. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean giving someone the chance to hurt you again. Tommy nodded, understanding the distinction. I'm not ready to see him yet. Maybe someday, but not now, and that's perfectly okay. We never did find out what happened to Jessica. After serving her prison sentence, she disappeared completely. I heard through the legal grapevine that she moved to another state and changed her name. In some ways, I'm grateful. Tommy doesn't need that toxicity back in his life. Last month, Tommy did something that filled my heart with pride. His school was having a career day, and instead of talking about wanting to be a doctor or a lawyer like most of his classmates, he stood up and said he wanted to work for Children's Protective Services. I want to help kids who are in situations like I was, he told his class. I want to make sure they have people fighting for them. His teacher called me afterward to tell me how impressed she was with Tommy's maturity and compassion. Mrs. Williams, most children who go through what Tommy experienced become angry or withdrawn. But he's channeled his experience into wanting to help others. You should be very proud of how you've raised him. I am proud. Not just of how Tommy has healed and grown, but of how our family has transformed from something broken into something beautiful. The house is different now too. Where there used to be tension and fear, there's laughter and music. Tommy has friends over regularly, and they all call me Grandma Rose. I've become the neighborhood grandmother, the one who always has fresh cookies and a listening ear. But the biggest change is in myself. I learned that I was stronger than I ever imagined. I learned that love sometimes means fighting, even against your own family. I learned that protecting someone you love is worth any sacrifice. Most importantly, I learned that blood doesn't make a family. Love makes a family. Choice makes a family. Showing up every single day makes a family. As I watch Tommy finish mowing the lawn, I think about that scared little boy who came home from school 5 years ago, crying because other kids said his grandma didn't really love him. That little boy stood up for me when it mattered most. He defended our family when the adults around him were trying to destroy it. He chose love over money, truth over lies, safety over false promises. Tommy waves at me from across the yard, and I wave back, my heart full of gratitude for this second chance we've been given. Tonight, we're having dinner with Sarah and her new husband, a kind man who treats Tommy like his own son. Tomorrow, Tommy starts his sophomore year of high school. Next month we're taking a family vacation to the beach. We have plans, we have dreams. We have a future built on solid ground instead of shifting sand. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how things turned out with Michael. They ask if I wish I had handled things differently, been more forgiving, tried harder to work things out. The answer is simple. I regret that Michael chose greed over love. I regret that he put Tommy through trauma no child should experience. I regret that he threw away a family that would have loved and supported him through anything. But I don't regret fighting for Tommy. I don't regret standing up to bullies and liars. I don't regret choosing justice over false peace. Because this is what we won. Tommy knows he is loved unconditionally. He knows he is safe. He knows that the people in his life will protect him no matter what. And he knows that his Grandma Rose really is worth more than his dad, Not because of money or material things, but because of the choice I made every single day to put his well-being first. That 10-year-old boy was right when he stood up in that classroom and defended me. Sometimes children see the truth more clearly than adults do. Love isn't about blood or obligation. Love is about choice, sacrifice, and showing up when it matters most. And that's a lesson worth defending.